Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, Israel celebrates a historic achievement in the United Nations. The UK is accused of giving the Palestinian Authority funding to support terrorists, and an Israeli startup introduces a groundbreaking new way to catch criminals. I'm Natasha Kirchuk here with the latest news in Israel. Israel has another historic achievement to celebrate. For the first time in history, Israel has been elected to head a permanent committee at the upcoming United Nations General Assembly. Despite intense efforts by Arab and Muslim states to stop the nomination, Israel's ambassador to the UN, Dani Danon, has been elected the chairman of the GA's 6th committee. If you're wondering what the General Assembly's 6th Committee is, here's your answer. The 6th Committee is a primary forum for the consideration of legal questions in the General Assembly, and this fall it's expected to deal with measures to eliminate international terrorism. In a secret ballot held on Monday in New York, Dani Danon was elected to lead the committee, and one of his first tasks in the new position will be to further the Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism. Israel is a world leader when it comes to international law and fighting terrorism, and Danon says he is pleased to share the country's knowledge with the world. The Israeli ambassador was nominated for the job by the Western European and Others group in the UN. The chairmanships of the GA main committees are allocated on a rotational basis and are usually confirmed with a vote. But in this case, Yemen challenged Israel's nomination on behalf of the Arab group. Despite the challenge, Israel was still voted into leading the 6th Committee on Monday, and the support so far has been overwhelming from Western states. The British Prime Minister was one of the first leaders to condemn the terror attack in Tel Aviv last week, but it looks like there's some trouble brewing between the United Kingdom and Israel. Behind the scenes, Israel is accusing the UK of providing aid money to the Palestinian Authority that's being used to reward convicted terrorists. Israeli officials say the UK has provided £343 million in aid to the Palestinian Authority from 2011 to 2015. And the money is going towards funding the generous salaries and bonuses of about 5,000 convicted terrorists. They claim the money not only rewards terror but also exacerbates its threat by making a prison sentence not seem so bad. The Israeli NGO Palestinian Media Watch is behind the accusations and has been monitoring the Palestinian Authority and its security for years. It may seem shocking, but according to PA legislation from 2004, Palestinians convicted of terror offenses are immediately placed on the Palestinian Authority payroll. And worst of all, the more serious the crime, the more money a terrorist is paid. The longest-serving terrorists allegedly receive £2,075 a month, plus bonuses for their families. Britain is a major financial supporter of the Palestinian Authority and donates about $122 million to the PA per year. Now, the British Telegraph newspaper is reporting that a £1 million grant given by the UK to the PA is being used to encourage civil servants to participate in active conflict. The paper is also reporting that the PA has guaranteed to keep jobs open for the convicted terrorists while they complete their jail terms. Other nations are growing increasingly concerned about how their donations are being used. While the British government has failed to take action, Canada refuses to make direct payments to the PA, and is now only willing to fund humanitarian projects carried out by international organizations. The issue has been discussed by US and Dutch legislators, and a European Union team is reportedly in the region now investigating the matter. As the civil war in Syria wages on and the upheaval in Iraq continues, a strong Kurdish authority is starting to emerge. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz sat down with the Israeli Middle East expert Dr. Jonathan Spire, who recently visited the autonomous Kurdish regions, and he says that Israel will likely be one of the first countries to recognize an independent Kurdistan.
The Kurds have created a very strong authority on the ground, so if you travel there, and I was last there just 4 months ago, if you travel there, you have the strong impression of a clear control on the ground, roadblocks of the YPG forces, every couple of kilometers on the highways and so on and so forth. Normal life is continuing in that area, by the way, in a way unusual for Syria in the present time. Schools, hospitals, businesses, municipal authorities, all functioning. And perhaps, most importantly, the YPG have created a kind of working relationship with coalition and, most importantly, United States air power over Syria in the fight against Islamic State.
Do the Kurdish forces take fire from the Syrian army and from any of the outside forces, like the Russians that are helping the Syrians and the Iranians?
It's an interesting situation because there are two areas within the Kurdish area of control in northeast Syria where the Syrian army of Bashar al-Assad still has a presence, in Qamishli city and in Hasaka city. And again, I've been in both those areas and observed events on the ground, and there's a kind of uneasy coexistence between these kind of boxed-in regime enclaves and the Kurdish forces all around. And these uneasy coexistence, every so often, and the last time was just over a week ago, flares up into confrontations, you know, over demarcation lines, over attempts by the regime sometimes to try to forcibly recruit Kurdish young men to join their war efforts, and then the Kurds resist that. There was a shooting battle in Qamishli city just over a week ago between the Syrian Arab army, Assad's forces, and the Kurds. So it's an uneasy coexistence that every so often flares up into open hostility. At the end of the day, the Syrian army, with the exception of those two enclaves, is not nudging up against the area of Kurdish control. The Syrian army is much further to the west, and the forces that are directly facing the Kurds are either the Islamic State or the various Sunni Islamist rebel forces in northern Syria.
Turkey has problems with its Kurdish minority inside of its own boundaries. How keen will they be to prevent an independent Kurdistan inside Syria or Iraq?
In the following way, the Kurdish enclaves are split into two. It was three, and then they united, the Jazeera enclave and the Kobani enclave. And then there's another enclave further west in a town called Afrin. And these enclaves control almost the entirety now of the very long Syrian-Turkish border. And there's an area which remains under the control, not of the Kurds along that border, but it's controlled by ISIS. And the nightmare from the Turkish point of view is that that area should be liberated from ISIS by the Kurds, because that would then give the Kurds control of the entire 800 kilometers of border between Syria and Turkey. So what the Turks are doing, the Turks have effectively said to the West and to the Americans and others, look, if the Kurdish forces come too close to that border, you know, we're going to oppose them, we're going to shell them, and that won't happen. Now, the American response has been to say, well, okay, that's fine, but how do you want to take this area away from ISIS then? The Turks then said, well, we support various Sunni Arab rebel groups, they'll do it. Problem was, just a couple of weeks ago, they tried to do it, and their forces attacking from the west into that enclave, made a little bit of progress, took a town called Al-Ra'i, and then 48 hours later, ISIS counterattacked and pushed them all the way back. So it was a poor showing for those rebels. They don't clearly have the kind of abilities on the ground that the Kurds clearly do have. As of now, it's a kind of unsolved puzzle, because of course America and the West, Turkey is a NATO member in good standing, have to take Turkey's interests into account. At the same time, it is the Kurds who are prosecuting the war against Islamic State most effectively, very clearly, all the way across northern Syria.
You visited there, you're an Israeli academic. You had good relations with your hosts. What are the relations between Israel and the autonomous regions in Kurdistan?
You have to understand that Kurdish politics is split, and there are two areas today of Kurdish autonomy, one in Syria, the other, of course, in northern Iraq. And Israel's relations with the two elements governing those areas are quite different. With the Kurdish Democratic Party of Masoud Barzani that controls northern Iraq, the relationship with Israel is of historic standing, going back to Barzani's father, Mullah Mustafa Barzani, in the 60s, and is in good shape. Israel was the factor which allowed the Iraqi Kurds to get their oil onto international markets, out into the Mediterranean Sea, onto international markets. Israel now purchases a large amount of its oil from the Kurdish regional government. Relations are very good, and KRG officials are visiting Israel. And I think if the KRG were to declare independence tomorrow, Israel would probably be among the first states to recognize their independence.
Jonathan Spyer, head of the Rubin Center at the IDC, thanks so much for being with us today at ILTV.
Thank you very much, Steve.
This may sound like the stuff of science fiction, but an Israeli startup claims it's developed a personality prediction program that could help security forces spot people with bad intentions. The Israeli company Faceception claims it's found a new way to detect potential security threats by being able to predict the character traits of individuals by scrutinizing their faces.
Faceception technology can delete the preconception issue. We are only about your personality, not about your race, about your color, about your gender, about what you believe about. It's about your personality. So this technology is a new place for everyone to be equal.
Faceception claims it's found a way to isolate particular character traits by examining genetic material captured in photos or videos. Their technology has managed to distinguish about 20 different groups of people, ranging from terror suspects to champion poker players.
What we do, we know with high level of accuracy your personality ingredients, behavior, potential, and so we can have a profile about someone as individual, and the same we can do about the crowd. For example, telling that in, let's say, gate number 8, there is too much people that potentially can be terrorist or violent audience. So this is something that's very crucial for public safety.
The Faceception algorithm runs on standard platforms, and it's able to garner genetic information that lies within visible facial expressions. The cloud-based software can scan hundreds of faces in seconds, and can even predict potential trouble in a crowded stadium by detecting where people who may cause trouble are located.
We developed classifiers that can classify in fraction of second tons of people and makes this profile I'm talking about.
The Israeli company is aiming to sell their software to state security agencies and civilian bodies such as municipalities, and reportedly has no interest in holding on to collected data. Yet some security experts claim that the Faceception software could harm individual freedoms.
Certainly investment in technologies that enable to monitor an individual and actually to assess certain traits or certain attributes about an individual in the open space, open surveillance and monitoring capabilities, which kind of like put in risk private freedoms that we used to enjoy, like the freedom of privacy, like the freedom of communication that we used to enjoy. And now the technology certainly changes the balance.
Other counterterrorism experts claim that Faceception must be almost free of mistakes in order to be effective, because it must be able to correctly process massive amounts of people in densely populated places.
Well, the challenge in airports and stadiums and places like that if you have a rate of false positive, meaning you choose people and identify them as whatever, terrorist or suspect, and you have a ratio of more than 1 to 10,000, you might have a problem in the flow of the airport.
Right now, Faceception has an accuracy rate of 86%. While the company is working on improving that, Faceception CEO is dismissing the notion that his system could be influenced by racial profiling. He says his system treats each individual equally because it does not include details of racial identity when running its scan, and aims to identify potential threats without any previous information. Israel is a beautiful country to live in, but it can be expensive. Many Israelis face lots of debt, and it can be hard to get loans from banks. Now, one Israeli company is offering a different solution, and it's having a big social impact on the Holy Land. Joining us tonight is Ariel Sagi from Talia. Thanks for coming in. So, first of all, to begin, what does Talia do?
Well, Talia is Israel's largest P2P platform, P2P being person to person. We enable financial activity between people, and we have projects all over the country which rely on Talia's technology, which is based in military know-how and intelligence know-how, and our financial strength, our business models, and we take these ideas, and together with the technology, we actually bring the future of what we'd like banking to be, the future of banking, and provide it today, give people from the north to the south of the country the possibility to do it, and we actually make a social impact. We try to make a change. That's our goal.
So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. And again, to clarify, peer-to-peer lending essentially means, I can give you a loan, you can give me a loan, all right? So we're talking about banks aren't involved here. Now, how has your company had a social impact so far?
Exactly. Well, I'd like to give 3 examples. The first is we've invented employer loans, enterprise loans, and employers which run a factory or an office can help the people in the office and enable them better financial conditions, give them the option to take a loan at better rates or invest in their peers and get better rates. And this is without involving any banks at all. My second example is our financial communities, where a financial community can be any group of people with the lowest common denominator. It might be neighbors, people with mutual interests or hobbies, co-workers, unions, and these groups, there are thousands of people today in Israel, in the Israeli society, which rely on the platform and the technology and run these financial technologies. These are actually self-contained banks.
So who is being the most positively affected by your platform?
People. Because banks are not involved, the benefit, the gains stay in the community and go back into it. It's like it's a closed ecosystem where both the investors and the borrowers work together to improve society. Another example is our social projects. We are involved. We work together with NGOs and enterprises in Israel in order to make a change, especially in the weakest links of society. And we have such a project which works with women in poverty, which live in poverty, and want to establish their own businesses. And by investing in these businesses, these women rise above the poverty threshold and can be self-sustained financially.
Now let's talk about the future. You said that you guys have some big dreams that you're pursuing. Is this the end of an era? Are we going to stop using banks? What is your goal with this platform?
We're in the midst of realizing our first dreams. We have many more which we are working on. And we actually want to make Israeli society and also internationally all over the world to make it a more decent and more transparent place, and actually make it more people-oriented and not just business-oriented.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It was great having you, and I'm excited to check out the platform again.
Thank you.
Israel is a leader when it comes to international security, and now one Israeli company has become the first to introduce a full-scale solution against drones. If you want to see their amazing system in action, look no further. They've just tested it out at a sports stadium in the Holy Land. The Israeli company MC Tech took to Netanya Stadium to show how its drone downing technology could be used in different areas, where drones may pose a threat to security or human privacy.
We are here in order to show you how we can detect drones, how we can acquire them, optically acquire, and to verify that this is a threat, and then to neutralize them, and we also have the ability to destroy them.
The MC Horizon system can detect and disable unmanned aerial vehicles, otherwise known as UAVs. UAVs are increasingly being employed on battlefields, but they're also being used commercially to film events and even recreationally by individuals. The growing use of drones is becoming a concern to governments, which want to be able to thwart accidents, espionage, and even attacks.
So let's speak about the threat. This is a threat, gentlemen. It's not a big one. I can buy it in $500 and that's it. It can carry payload. I can fly it 20 minutes. It could fly over. I can send them from here to 2 kilometers away. I can use GPS. This is the threat. This is the same drone that landed on the White House grass twice. It's the same drone that landed in Japan Prime Minister house. This is the one.
Drones are typically controlled using a remote control, and the MC Horizon system says they're able to intercept drones within a range of 2.5 kilometers. The company can provide security at large events, like the upcoming European Soccer Championships, and can even be beneficial in commercial aspects.
Let's even look at a drone that is above a stadium, and let's look at all the commercial rights, television, and now let's see what happens when a drone is able to jam all of that or stop this. Just the commercial aspect of it, not only security and safety, is huge. So that's why I say, when you're designing your system, ask yourself, what do I want to stop? And just cut and paste against hooligans or terrorists? Or do I need a system that is able to deal with each and one of my individual threats? And then you start putting in the technologies, just like we see here.
Other companies around the world are attempting to create similar anti-drone technology, But it looks like MC Tech is the first to offer an effective solution. The Israeli company says their system has already passed field trials confirming its efficacy. Every year, people from around the world immigrate to Israel to pursue their dreams. And today we have a special Aliyah story to share with you. ILTV reporter Aaron Porras set out to meet a couple from South Africa that have found a unique way to pursue professional acting in the Holy Land. And after you hear about it, we won't be surprised if you want to check it out for yourself.
Moving to Israel is an exciting experience, and like most Israeli Olim, Daniela Roman and Grant Crankshaw had high hopes.
I wanted my son to grow up in Israel. I wanted him to have the Israeli upbringing, the Jewish upbringing. So, and we wanted the adventure. So we came to Israel.
I'd been here on holiday once and I knew how great it was, so that's all I needed.
Perhaps one thing they didn't count on, though, was how hard it was to transition into the Israeli theater culture. So instead, they started a new one.
What we found out when we first arrived in Israel, we wanted to pursue our acting career because we're both professional actors, but there's not really an opportunity for English-speaking actors, and it's very hard to cross over into the Hebrew theater. So there's only community theater. So eventually, after several years of doing community theater and feeling frustrated because we weren't able to hone our craft and work in what we're professional at, we decided to open the production company to try and give Anglo-Saxon professional actors the opportunity or a home for their stage. That is the ultimate goal, is to have a set home where Anglo-Saxon actors can work both in English and have a safe place to work in Hebrew, because it's daunting to work in Hebrew.
Since its founding, the Desert Rose Production Company has expanded its active membership and currently has 2 performances in production.
We've got 2 productions at the moment, one which is a crossover show, which is the beginnings of crossing over into Hebrew, so it has a mix of English and Hebrew. And the other production is basically our story, and it's the whole story of how against all the odds we stayed together, make it work, laugh through it, and we really laugh at the whole Aliyah thing and try and bring a human face to Israel and to Israelis. You know, I think media has a certain concept of Israelis, and we just want to show, hey, we're just people. We have our difficulties, and we laugh at everything, and we cry at things, and this is who we are. And just having a very, I think, funny and comedic look at life.
While Together Against the Odds recently finished its live circuit, the Broadway Bubba will be playing in Maalot's Culture Center on June 16th and at the Rosen Center in Ramat Aviv on September 8th.
So the best thing to do is to keep up to date on our website at www.desert-rose-productions.com, or just find us on Facebook, either Desert Rose Productions Facebook page or Grant and myself, and that's the way you'll keep up to date.
So until we can see the show, I at least wanted to find out one thing that they learned from their nearly 20 years in Israel since immigrating. What do you think your advice to an Oleh Chadash would be?
Learn the language.
Absolutely.
If you don't learn the language, you're never going to touch sides.
Yeah, you tend to stay in an Anglo bubble.
Yeah.
And you don't really immerse yourself in the culture and the people, and it's and be prepared for a challenge. It's not easy, but there's no beating it. On the other hand, so it's an incredible way of life, an incredible place, beautiful place to raise your kids. Nothing like it in the world.
Reporting for ILTV, this is Aaron Porras.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. They say good things come in pairs, so today's word is zug, which means couple in Hebrew. There's nothing more endearing or sometimes nauseating than a zug in love. In the Holy Land, you'll find that Israelis will interrogate you more about your love life than anything else. Don't be surprised if one of the first questions you're asked is Yesh lach ben zug, or are you part of a couple? Or in other words, are you single? Don't feel obligated to answer. Just because Israelis can be overly curious doesn't mean you have to disclose everything. But if you are part of a zug and you want to share it with Israel, embrace a positivity that you'll probably hear. It's not uncommon to hear comments like zug mishamayim, or match made in heaven, because to Israelis, every relationship is a blessing. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. The heat continues in Tel Aviv. Wednesday is expected to be sunny with a high of 87 degrees. The sun will stay out into Thursday, but the temperature should drop down to 80. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.87 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to check out our evening update every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you tonight.